The stars were quiet. The black of space stretched in every direction, endless and cold. In the center of that silence, a single human ship moved slowly. It was not a warship. It had no weapons, no armor, and no escort. It was a science vessel, old and peaceful. Its name was the Horizon Reach. Its crew of 20 men and women had only one goal: to study space. They had been traveling for months, far from Earth. They thought they were alone. They didn't know they had crossed into Empire space. The Galactic. Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for centuries. Their laws were strict. No alien ship was allowed near their borders. Warnings were sent. Those who didn't listen were destroyed. But the Horizon Reach never saw the warning. Inside the ship, everything was calm. Scientists worked at their stations. A young woman named Elira was studying a strange gas cloud. She smiled as her screen lit up with data. The ship's captain, Jonah Reed, stood nearby sipping coffee. "This is the quietest trip we've had in years," he said. Elira laughed. Maybe too quiet. Neither of them knew that just hours away, an Empire patrol ship had spotted them. The Empire ship was fast and heavily armed. Its captain, Lord Varnus, stared at the human vessel on his screen and frowned. "What are they doing in our space?" he asked his officer. "They appear unarmed, sir." "A civilian ship. Science class." Varnus scoffed. "Fools. They enter without permission and expect mercy, prepare weapons. But sir, they haven't attacked. They entered, that's enough. Fire." Across space, the Horizon Reach lit up with alerts. Red lights flashed. The crew jumped to their feet. "Multiple missiles incoming," shouted the ship's pilot. Jonah ran to the command seat. "Evasive maneuvers. Send out a distress beacon. Now." But it was too late. The missiles struck with brutal force. The ship shook violently. Fire broke out in 2 sections. Oxygen began leaking. One of the engineers was killed instantly. The others scrambled to stay alive. Elira was thrown across the room. Blood ran from her forehead, but she crawled to her console. "Beacon. Beacon is active." Far away on a quiet Earth-Moon station, a signal blinked red. A man named Commander Tarek watched it appear on his screen. He froze. Then he stood up and made one call. "Activate Project Ragnarok." On the Empire ship, Lord Varnus watched the human vessel break apart. He smiled. "Let that be a lesson. We do not tolerate weakness." His officers nodded, but none smiled. Something about the attack felt wrong. Back on Earth, the High Council met in silence. No one spoke for a full minute. The room was filled with old men and women in simple clothes. They were not soldiers. Not anymore. But their eyes were hard. "They attacked first," one man said. "We always hoped this day would never come," said another. The chairwoman, an old woman named Lyra, stood. "Then it is time to show the galaxy what humans truly are." She pressed a button. A long-forgotten message began to play. It was simple. It had only 5 words. "We do not forgive weakness." In the Empire capital, laughter echoed in the white royal palace. The Emperor himself, tall and proud in golden armor, stood before his council. They were humans, those tiny creatures from the edge of space. "Yes, Your Grace," said his advisor. "They lost one ship. No retaliation." The Emperor smiled. "Then they are exactly what I thought, cowards. Send word. If we see another human ship, destroy it." Across the galaxy, messages spread. Humanity is weak. The Empire rules. But the humans were not weak. They were silent. And silence was dangerous. In the deep black of space, far from any star, an old station came to life. It had no name, no signal. It had been hidden for centuries. Inside it were ships, hundreds of them, built in secret. Black metal, no markings. They didn't move yet, but lights flickered on one by one. A voice echoed through the station. Cold and clear. "Wake up. The time has come." One of the captains, a man named Kale, stepped onto the bridge of the lead ship. He wore no uniform. His eyes were sharp. "Target?" he asked. The voice replied, "Empire Patrol Base 7. They fired the first shot." Kale nodded. "Then we return the favor." Back on the Empire side, Patrol Base 7 sat quietly near a dead moon. The guards were relaxed. No alarms, no activity. Then, without a warning, their systems shut down. What happened? The commander shouted. No one answered. All screens went black. Then a single word appeared on every monitor. Remember. Then the humans struck. Black ships came from the shadows. They didn't broadcast, they didn't speak, they just fired. The base was destroyed in 90 seconds. Empire High Command was stunned. No one had seen them coming. How did they hide? Asked the general. No idea, sir, said the technician. They were invisible to scanners. The Emperor was silent for a moment. Then he laughed again. So they fight back. Finally. Good. Now we can crush them properly. In the dark room of a hidden command center, Earth's leaders watched every move. Let him laugh, said Lyra. Kale appeared on the screen. Phase 2 ready. Begin, she ordered. The next day, 2 more Empire stations vanished. No signal, no survivors. The pattern was clear. Humans were not striking randomly. They were hunting. A senator from the Empire's War Council stood before the Emperor. Your Grace, perhaps we should speak with them. Open talks. The Emperor glared at him. Speak? They are insects. We burn insects. On a small Empire planet called Krell, a civilian port was destroyed by accident. A human ship had aimed for a nearby supply base. One of the fragments hit the town. Humans responded with a message. Regret. Not our target. We strike soldiers, not farmers. Move your civilians. Even their enemies noticed. The humans were precise. Empire soldiers grew nervous. Whispers started. Maybe we should stop. But orders kept coming. Push forward, crush Earth. The next attack failed. 3 Empire ships were sent to chase a single human vessel. Only one returned, and it was broken. The crew had gone silent. Their captain sat in a corner, whispering. They see in the dark. They don't speak. They just destroy. The Emperor grew angry. Send 20 ships, end this now. But 20 ships were not enough. Kyle and his fleet moved like shadows. They struck and vanished. Each time, Empire forces were slower, weaker. Their pride had made them blind. On Earth, people did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They just worked. Quietly, they built more ships. They had waited for peace. But now war had come, and they knew what they had to do. Elira, the young scientist, survived the attack on the Horizon Reach. Burned and scarred, she woke up in a recovery pod on a hidden station. I remember their faces, she whispered. They laughed at us. Kale visited her. He bowed his head. They won't laugh again. In the final hours of Part 1, an Empire fleet of 50 ships entered human space. They moved fast, confident. The Empire believed this would be the end. But they didn't know Earth had planned for this day centuries ago. As they entered orbit near a cold asteroid field, they found nothing. Then, from behind the rocks, came the black ships. The first wave hit with no warning. Human ships did not glow. They did not roar. They moved in silence and destroyed with precision. Within minutes, half the Empire fleet was gone. The other half tried to escape, but space was closed. Human ships had blocked all exits. A single message was sent from Earth to the Empire Command. You chose this war. Now you will live with it. The screen went dark. The fleet commander of the Empire, General Vorsin, stood alone on the bridge of his burning ship. Around him, his crew was gone. Fire raged. Alarms screamed. He looked at the stars and whispered, "We thought they were weak." His words were cut off as the ship exploded, and far away in the Empire Palace, the Emperor's smile finally faded. He asked in a quiet voice, "What have we done?" Darkness still hung over the stars when silence returned to the battlefield. Broken metal drifted, slowly spinning in the quiet vacuum. There were no sounds, no voices, only the empty quiet of space. But not far from this quiet graveyard, something began to move again. Human ships, black and smooth. blending with the cold dark. They scanned the area and then disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Far from the wreckage, on a hidden Earth station, deep inside a dust cloud, Captain Kale stood in front of a room full of people. They were not wearing medals or shiny uniforms. They wore simple, dark clothes. Some were scientists, some engineers, some soldiers from long ago. None of them smiled. Kale's voice was calm. They now understand we are not afraid. A woman at the table leaned forward. Her name was Mira, a former diplomat. The problem is not fear, it's pride. They don't believe we are equal. They think we are beneath them. Kale nodded. They believed we would hide, that we would beg. They believed wrong, said another voice at the back of the room. This man was tall and thin with silver hair. His name was Dr. Rain. He had worked for decades in the shadows, preparing for this moment. They will return, not because they want peace, but because they cannot believe they were outmatched. And we must be ready, said Kale. Back, on the Empire's capital world, the Emperor stood in his hall, his hands behind his back. The grand room was silent. His advisors watched him, waiting. Many had expected him to shout. Others thought he would call for more fleets, but he did neither. After a long pause, the Emperor turned. They did not act like others. They struck with speed, precision, discipline. An advisor spoke carefully. Some believe they may not be acting alone. Perhaps another race is supporting them. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. Do you think insects like them can do this without help? They are not insects, Your Grace, the advisor whispered. Not anymore. The words hung in the air like smoke. The Emperor walked to a large window. Outside, the stars burned quietly. Send scouts. I want to know everything about them. Their numbers, their technology, how they move without detection. And so, across the stars, the Empire began searching. But their search found something they did not expect. Entire human colonies that were hidden. Small worlds with strong defenses living in secret, places untouched by Empire maps. Each colony different, but all of them connected. Quiet, disciplined, united. One scout ship landed on a frozen world called Solace 9. They found no weapons, only farmers and builders. But when they tried to question them, the humans smiled and said nothing. Their silence spoke louder than words. The scout captain returned to his ship. Before he left, one old man placed a small crystal in his hand. It held no message, no warning, just a simple star map and a single marked system. What is this? The scout asked. The old man replied softly. The place where it began. Back on Earth, Mira met with Kale in a quiet corridor of the command station. She held a small device with blinking lights. The map they sent leads here, she said. We think it's the first place the Empire ever made contact with another race. Long ago. A forgotten world. They used it to test their control. Kyle's eyes narrowed. They heard others there? Mira nodded. Long before us. That world remembers. Kyle looked at the stars. Then maybe that world is ready to speak. He sent a small team, just one ship, fast and quiet. When they arrived, they found ruins buried in dust and shadow. But under the surface, they also found signs of life. Not machines, not people. Just a feeling, like something was watching. And then they heard a voice. Not over the radio, but in their minds. We remember, and we will speak. The voice was not human. It was old, cold, but not cruel. It told the story of how the Empire had once landed there, long ago. How they forced the first people to bow. How they changed the world. And how, one by one, those people disappeared. Kale listened. So did Mira. And then the voice said one more thing. You are not like them. But they believe you are. That is their mistake. Back in the Empire Palace, the Emperor received the scout report. The marked system, the strange voice, the silent colonies. He paced the room. They're building something, he said. Something we don't see. His advisor asked carefully, Shall we speak with them, Your Grace? No, the Emperor replied. We will push harder. But even as he said it, deep inside, he felt something he had never felt before, a quiet edge of doubt. Back on the hidden human station, Kyle stood in front of a new display. It showed planets, stars, trade routes, but some were blinking red. They will come again, he said. Dr. Rain stepped beside him. And we will not meet them with anger. We will meet them with clarity. Kyle looked at him. You still believe in peace? Rain nodded. But not at the cost of truth. Kyle stared into the dark beyond the screen. Then let's show them what truth looks like. In the distance, across millions of stars, Empire fleets moved again. Bigger, heavier, more prepared. They believed they had learned from their last mistake, but the humans had not stopped learning. Either. They had watched. They had waited. And now, they were ready. The stars above the Empire's edge shimmered with quiet light, but underneath that calm sky, tension was building. On the outer border, Station Lyra 7 had gone silent. No signal, no message, no warning. Just silence. Inside the Empire's War Council chamber, the silence felt even heavier. Advisors sat around a long black table, unsure whether to speak first. The Emperor, usually calm and composed, now paced slowly. His eyes never blinked. The humans did this, he said softly. An older general leaned forward. But no weapons were fired. No distress, no trace. Exactly, the Emperor replied. That's what bothers me. Another advisor whispered, we believe they're testing us, studying how we respond. They don't want to destroy us, they want us to make a mistake. The room went cold. Meanwhile, far away, a small human ship glided through the darkness, completely silent. It had no flags, no markings, and no need for words. Inside the command room, Captain Kale watched his crew move calmly. Their mission wasn't destruction. It was observation. Their goal wasn't fear. It was understanding. This system has new Empire activity, said Mira, standing beside Kale. She pointed to the star map. They've sent larger ships, but they're not chasing us. They're watching, just like we are. Kale nodded. They want to predict our next step. Dr. Rain entered the room quietly. Let's give them one. Everyone turned toward him. He placed a small object on the table. It looked like a piece of glass, but when activated, it projected a symbol, simple, clean, unmistakable. It was the ancient sign of open talks used by many species before the Empire ever rose. We send this to them, Rain said. A message, not of surrender, not of fear, but of invitation. Mira raised an eyebrow. You think they'll respond? No, Rain replied, but their reaction will show us everything. Back in the Empire's council chamber, the holographic message arrived. It was short, one symbol. No voice, no explanation, just the sign. The Emperor stared at it for a long time. Some laughed quietly. Others called it foolish, but the Emperor didn't laugh. They are not weak, they are not afraid, they believe in order. And that is power. He stepped closer to the projection and pointed at the symbol. We answer this, but not with words. We show them our version of order. Soon after, the Empire sent ships, not to attack, but to orbit quietly above one of the outer human settlements. They didn't land. They didn't threaten. They simply watched. The humans did not respond. They let the Empire watch. And so, both sides stood in silence, separated by stars, linked by questions. On Earth, Captain Kale met with leaders across different colonies. Not all agreed with his choices. Some believed peace was impossible. Others feared another confrontation. Kyle raised his voice just enough to calm the room. We don't want to fight, but we won't kneel. That is the balance. One young engineer, barely older than a student, spoke up. But what if they test that balance? Kale didn't answer immediately. He turned to the large window behind him. Outside, Earth rotated slowly under a quiet sun. We show them that silence is not weakness. It's patience. The engineer nodded slowly, understanding more than words could explain. Days passed, weeks. The Empire sent a second message, this time not as a threat, but as a test. They activated a communication link between one of their border stations and a human listening post. The channel stayed open for an hour. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear. They were ready to talk. Back at the command center, Dr. Rain smiled. They're starting to see us, Mira added. Not as enemies, not as tools, but something new. Kale stared at the open channel screen. They still don't trust us, but they're trying. And so, a meeting was arranged. Not in person, not with armies, but with signals. A simple call between two individuals. From the Empire, a high speaker named Tolar. From Earth, Dr. Rain. No cameras, no recordings, just words. Tolar's voice was deep. You do not fear us. Rain's voice was soft. We understand fear, we just don't live by it. There was a long silence before Tolar asked, Why return now? After all these years hiding, Rain replied, Because you forgot we were still here, and forgetting is more dangerous than fear. Tolar didn't respond right away, but his next words were slower, less sharp. Perhaps there is more to your kind than we expected. Rain leaned forward slightly, even though Tolar could not see him. And perhaps your kind is capable of change. After the call ended, nothing happened. No ships moved, no orders were given. But something had shifted. Subtle, quiet, but real. The Empire did not laugh anymore, and Earth no longer watched from the shadows. Across the stars, two sides who had never truly met were now looking at each other with new eyes, not filled with anger or pride, but curiosity. Still in the background, the unknown stirred. Mira looked at Kyle later that night. You think this will hold? Kyle replied, It's not about holding. It's about giving space for something new to grow. And deep in the dark, where stars barely glowed, something was growing. Not a weapon, not a wall, but a possibility. The stars were cold and distant as the human ship glided silently through the empty space between two distant worlds. Captain Kale stood alone on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the dark horizon beyond the thick glass. The hum of the engines was the only sound in the quiet room. Outside, the universe stretched endlessly, silent, mysterious, and full of secrets. It had been weeks since the first contact between the Empire and the humans, the first words exchanged after centuries of silence and fear. Yet neither side had moved beyond the cautious messages and veiled meanings. Both waited, both watched. Neither wanted to be the first to break the fragile silence, but both knew that the moment would come. Kyle's thoughts wandered back to the conversation with the Empire's envoy, Tolar. The calm voice, the subtle shift in tone, the hint of curiosity behind the usual pride. The humans had shown patience and strength, qualities the Empire was beginning to respect even if they did not yet admit it. A soft beep interrupted Kale's thoughts. Mira's voice came over the comms. Captain, we have incoming data from the border scouts. Kale nodded. Put it on the main screen. The stars faded, replaced by a flickering map showing distant systems and faint signals. One signal pulsed steadily from a small moon orbiting a gas giant near the Empire's heart. The scouts had detected unusual activity there, a light not matching any known pattern. Could be another human settlement? Kyle asked. Mira shook her head. Not on any of our charts. It's too close to the Empire's core worlds. If it's new, it's been hidden very well. Kale's eyes narrowed. Or it could be something else, something the Empire doesn't want us to see. The room filled with a tense silence as the crew stared at the strange beacon. No one spoke, but the weight of the unknown pressed on them all. Far away on the Empire's capital, the Emperor studied his advisors. His calm facade was cracking, revealing the strain beneath. The quiet had lasted longer than expected, and whispers of unrest spread through his council. Some feared the humans were not just a nuisance but a sign of change, something the Empire could not control. They grow stronger, one advisor warned. They adapt faster than we thought. Emperor's gaze was cold but thoughtful. Then we must prepare not just for battle but for what comes after. Back on the human ship, Kale made a decision. We will investigate that signal. Quietly. No alerts. No transmissions. Mira smiled faintly. A spy mission. Kale shrugged. Call it what you want. But we need answers. The ship changed, course slipping deeper into the unknown. As they approached the moon, the light grew brighter, almost alive. It was a beacon of hope, or perhaps a warning. The moon's surface was rocky and scarred, but something strange caught their attention. An ancient structure, half buried in dust and shadow. It looked old, far older than anything the humans or the Empire had recorded. Kale ordered a small team to land and explore. As they stepped out, the air was thin but breathable. The silence was thick, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside the ruins, they found symbols carved deep into the stone, symbols that seemed familiar but impossible to place. The walls whispered stories of a forgotten past, of ancient races that had risen and fallen before the Empire was born. Mira traced her fingers over the carvings. These are warnings, not to outsiders, but to those who come seeking power. Kyle felt a chill. Warnings about what? Before anyone could answer, a soft glow illuminated the room. The stones pulsed with light, and the air vibrated with energy. Suddenly, a voice spoke, not through speakers or radios, but directly inside their minds. Why do you come? It was not a question, but a challenge. Kyle stepped forward. We come seeking truth, not to conquer or destroy. The voice was silent for a moment, then replied, Truth is a burden. Are you ready to carry it? Kyle looked at his team. They nodded. Yes, he said firmly. We are ready. The light grew stronger, filling the room with warmth and light. Images appeared, visions of worlds before the Empire, of civilizations that had lived in harmony with the stars, only to be shattered by greed and fear. The voice continued. The Empire forgot these lessons, but you humans still carry the choice, to learn or to repeat the past. Kale's heart pounded. He knew this was more than just a message. It was a test. Back on the ship, the crew watched the moon's surface change as the beacon's light faded. Mira spoke softly. We have much to learn, and time is shorter than we think. Kyle agreed. We must prepare, not for war, but for what comes after. Across the galaxy, the Empire's fleets shifted uneasily. They had sent spies, they had sent messengers, but now they faced something new, an ancient power awakening, and a people determined not just to survive, but to change the fate of the stars. Kyle stood once more on the bridge, staring into the darkness. The first war was only the beginning, he said quietly. The real challenge is just ahead. The quiet hum of the ship was the only sound as Captain Kale stood before the vast view of the galaxy, stretched out before him. Each twinkle of light from distant stars felt like a question waiting to be answered. The mystery of the ancient moon lingered heavily in his mind, pulling him deeper into a path neither he nor his crew had expected. Messages had come from the Empire, not threats but careful observations. They were watching humanity as humans watched them, waiting for the next move, the next word, the next step. But the humans did not plan to give easy answers. Instead, they sought a way forward that could change everything. Kale knew the crew was restless. They wanted purpose, direction. The ancient message on that forgotten moon was more than just a warning. It was a challenge, a call to rethink everything they believed about power, peace, and survival. Mira approached quietly. Captain, the Council on Earth is divided. Some want to prepare for conflict, others want to reach out to the Empire for true dialogue. Kale looked at her, understanding the weight in her voice. Both paths carry risk, he said slowly. but we cannot choose fear over hope. The ship's communication system blinked suddenly. It was a secure channel from the Empire. Kale's heart quickened. The moment had come. He activated the link. On the screen appeared a single figure, a dignitary from the Empire known as Loran. His expression was calm, but unreadable. "Captain Kyle," Loran began. "The Empire wishes to propose a meeting, a chance to explore what lies beyond silence and suspicion." Kale studied the man's face. Years of conflict had taught him to read beyond words, to find truth in pauses and tone. This was no empty gesture. "We accept," Kale replied steadily, "but on neutral ground, a place where neither side held power, a place to talk honestly." The days that followed were tense but hopeful. The crew prepared for the journey to the meeting point, a small, unclaimed planet between the two powers. Everyone knew this meeting could change the fate of their worlds. As the ship approached the planet's orbit, Kale watched the blue and green swirl of oceans and forest below. The air was clear, the land untouched. A blank page. Loran's ship appeared beside them, sleek and silent. The two crews exchanged cautious greetings, careful not to cross lines drawn by centuries of fear. In a small hall on the planet's surface, Kyle and Loran sat across from each other. No armies, no weapons, just two leaders facing the unknown. Loran spoke first. "Your people have shown strength and patience, qualities rare in these times." Kyle nodded. "We have learned that power alone does not secure peace. Understanding does." Loran's eyes flickered with something almost like respect. "The Empire is old. We have forgotten what it means to listen. Perhaps it is time to remember," Kyle said softly. They talked through the hours, about histories, fears, hopes, about the dangers of repeating old mistakes and the possibilities of new alliances. Back on their ships, both crews waited. Some hoped for peace, others doubted it could last. Suddenly, the meeting was interrupted. An alert flashed, a signal from deep space. Something approaching fast, unknown. Kale's hand hovered over the controls. "What is it?" Mira checked the data. "Unknown vessel, no identification, heading this way." Loran's voice was calm, but tense. Could be a test, or a threat. Neither wanted conflict, but both knew the galaxy was no longer quiet. Kale looked at Loran. "Whatever this is, it will decide if our words mean anything." The two leaders shared a look, equal parts fear and determination. Outside, the stars awaited the answer. The future was no longer a question of war or peace. It was a question of trust, and trust, Kale knew, was the most fragile power of all. The tension on the bridge was thick as the unknown vessel grew larger on the sensors. Every eye was fixed on the blinking signal, searching for answers in the air. Vast emptiness of space. No name, no markings, just a silent approach that stirred unease in even the calmest minds. Captain Kale stood steady, though inside, a storm of questions raged. Who were they? Friend or foe? The silence was deafening, broken only by the quiet beeping of the ship's systems. Mira stepped forward, her voice measured. "It's not responding to any hails, no known language detected. It's moving deliberately toward us." Kale nodded. "Prepare defensive protocols, but keep them on standby. We don't want to start something if we can avoid it." The ship's crew worked quietly, a mix of readiness and hope. Kale understood the weight on their shoulders. This encounter could decide everything the humans and the Empire had worked toward. Peace, understanding, or something else entirely. On the planet below, Loran and his advisors watched the approaching shadow on their own screens. The Empire was no stranger to unknown dangers, but this felt different. An enigma that challenged their beliefs and forced them to rethink their place in the universe. Kale and Loran connected once more through a secure channel. "This is no ordinary encounter," Loran said softly. "We may be facing something beyond our understanding." Kale's reply was steady. Then we face it together. As the unknown vessel drew close, a new message was received. It was not words, but images, patterns of light and symbols that danced across the screen like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Mira studied the patterns carefully. It's a message, not hostile, a form of greeting, perhaps. Kyle felt a flicker of hope. If they could decode this, it might mean new friends, new allies, or even something older than either humans or the Empire. Days passed as experts from both crews worked together, sharing knowledge, piecing together the meaning behind the symbols. It was a slow process, but every small breakthrough brought them closer to understanding. The message told a story of a civilization that had once thrived among the stars but vanished long ago. They spoke of balance, respect for life, and the dangers of pride and isolation. Kyle felt a deep connection to these words, as if they echoed the lessons humanity was just beginning to learn. Then came a decision to open a direct meeting with the unknown vessel's crew, if there were any left. A small shuttle was prepared, and Kyle volunteered to lead the mission. As they approached the silent ship, a strange calm settled over him. The past and future seemed to merge in that moment. Inside, they found no one, only echoes of a lost people. Holographic records showed their history, their rise and fall, their warnings for any who would listen. It was a gift, a chance to learn from those who had gone before. Kyle and Loran returned to their ships, their minds filled with new purpose. The meeting on the neutral planet continued, now with a deeper understanding between humans and the Empire. Both sides realized that their future depended not just on strength but on wisdom, cooperation, and the courage to change. Kale looked out into the stars once more. The first war with humans was only the beginning, but the real journey had just started. The galaxy was wide, full of mysteries and choices, and together they would face whatever came next.